Okay, Dallas, welcome to my podcast.
Hello, Mindy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I come to you for like all of my advice. If I can't figure it out, you can, right?
I try. I am an expert lover after all.
Oh, Dallas, the expert lover. Yes. So, fun story. We already tried to record this entire episode once before and it crashed. And so now we're doing it again a few days later. So hopefully it's going to be better because it's the second time. But really quickly, I'm going to introduce Dallas for what I know her as, and she can take it from there. I've known Dallas since high school, college, where we worked together.
Yeah, we
Feels
met in
longer.
college.
Yeah. And I've known her almost like 1 year less than her husband has. And so, like, I feel like I have like gone through a marriage with her as well. Like, we're that close. So tell us about a little bit about yourself that we should know before we get started.
Yeah, I've been married 10 years. Got three great kids. And I didn't grow up in the LDS church like Mindy did, but I did later join, and that's how we met. But I did still grow up with the mindset of like, you don't talk about sex. And so, like, it was a taboo subject. We know everybody did it, but we never talked about it. And so, getting into my 20s, it was really uncomfortable when people would talk to me about like their sex lives. But over time, I've gotten comfortable with it, and I enjoy giving people advice and getting their perspective on sex, relationships, and it's just taught me that everybody's so different. And so hopefully we can help some people with our talk today. Maybe
I
give
hope
some
so.
advice
I
that could
mean,
be helpful.
we're hoping. It's kind of one of those subjects, which is why I came to you, that like it's hard to define these things and it's hard to feel confident that what you're saying is helpful. And
Mhm.
I know that you have way more experience in these two topics that we're talking about today than I have. I've done research on them, but I've never really felt what I think you need to have the right amount of empathy to address these topics, and you have. And so that's why I invited you on.
Mhm.
Also, by the way, this is the first podcast episode I'm ever doing with video. So you're not only going to be like a helpful, like, person giving advice, but you're also the first person on my video aspect of this podcast. So
Hi, everyone.
welcome. Her like video quality is way more embarrassingly better than mine. But there's a reason why I haven't done my podcast as a video podcast this far, and it's because I would have to update my technology, and I just don't want to. Like, it's just
Mhm.
like way extra work that I have to do on top of it, and I don't get paid for this. This is my hobby, so yeah. But that's okay. All right. So
We'll make it
to
work.
address,
You look great.
yeah. I mean, you look great, and so like you're the person that's gonna be doing a lot of the talking. So that just like look at her. But yes, unfortunately, for some reason, our generation and younger only find podcasts through like YouTube and TikTok these days instead of searching for podcasts, even though it's like an audio thing. I don't understand why we do that, but it seems to be a cultural thing we do now. So I kind of have to, if I'm gonna grow my audience at all, is I have to show me talking.
You've got to evolve with the times,
I
like
guess
every.
so. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, like it's just yeah. Well, we can talk about this off camera, but like it's just an interesting like social thing. Okay, so the topic of today, someone messaged me. His name is Caleb, and he asked a bunch of different things for me to consider talking about, and one of them I actually did find really interesting, and I have been thinking about in relation to these things. One that I didn't even think would be an issue, and is how does one address in their relationship either mismatch love languages or mismatch sex drives. So Last time when we recorded this and failed, we started off with love languages, and I still feel like that's the way we should go. I feel like that really does like maybe it's just my Mormon upbringing, but maybe we need to skirt around the sex talk a little bit. I don't know, but I feel like it needs like a warm up topic. So let's get
Mhm.
started with that. So, what are your thoughts on what a person should do if they feel like they have a mismatch in their love language with their partner?
So, I think I think the most important thing to consider is first understanding what your love language is with your partner in your relationship. And I mean, I could have avoided a lot of difficult years of trial and error with my husband had we just sat down and been like, this is what I need to feel loved and secure and seen. What is it that you need me to do for you? Um, and so, because my husband and I do have very different love languages. He's, um, I think we were trying to think of all five last time. So it's physical touch, words of affection, acts of service, gift giving, and what's the fifth one?
Did you say quality time?
Quality time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's the five of them that we'll focus on. But yeah, so his is physical touch, and mine can be various different things, and also his can be various different things based on like the mood he's in, what's happened, what he needs to feel secure again. Um, Mine is usually quality time, but also anything involving food. Like if he brings me
Hey.
food on his way home because he's stopping by as well, then like he knows to get me something because he knows I will always appreciate it.
I think
Um,
all girls are that way. Our love
yeah.
languages, it doesn't matter if there's a mismatch in your relationship. The primary love language for all females is, did you bring me a snack?
Guys, seven times out of 10, if she's angry, just she's hangry, just give her some food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree with
um,
that. I told you before that that lady in my class talked about how one day her son came home and his girlfriend was angry and he couldn't figure out why. Like he had done nothing, and she was like, "Because she's hungry. Go get her a snack. Like go to Starbucks, get her favorite drink. Go to McDonald's, get her a large fry, and then go to Chick-fil-A and get her some chicken nuggets." Like your relationship now is going to be not only like improved, but like she's going to be instantly happier. Like problem solved. Just get her food.
yep.
Women are simple.
Food is the language of love. But
It should be.
I know. But yeah, and so what I would recommend to any couple, whether they're a new couple, a long-term couple, like even 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, I've been married 10 years and this advice is still really helpful of communicate with your partner about what it is that each other needs. So for example, like if he is really stressed out, if he's had a really hard day, then I know and to expect that like he's going to need physical attention. Like intimate physical touch is going to help relieve that stress for him. That's the kind of release that he needs. But if it's something where somebody had said something that really got to him, then words of affirmation. He loves, and this one he did tell me early on in our marriage that he just needs regular reminders of why I love him, things that I love and appreciate about him. And so in my mind, when I see that he's feeling down, I just say like, "You're my favorite person. Like you mean so much to me. I love you." And I give him hugs and kisses, and it helps. And he's like, "Oh, thanks. I really needed to hear that." And so having that kind of feedback as well is so important. Like if your partner does something that you don't appreciate, kindly tell them. But if they do something that just really fills you up, don't just be like, "Oh, thanks." Like tell them like, "I needed that. You saw me and I felt really cared for and loved because you did that for me. Thank you so much. Because then it's going to happen again.
It is. It's going to be a repeat thing.
Yes, because your partner, if they really love you, they're going to want to have you feel loved regularly. So if you tell them, hey, XYZ makes me feel loved, they're going to help you feel loved. And that's a beautiful thing. It'll help so much in your relationship. Just the little things like that really make a big difference.
Well, I totally agree. Like it's like almost giving a roadmap or like an instruction manual to your partner. Like, hey, if you're confused, if you don't know why I'm angry, here's what you can do to improve this situation. No, it's I said in the last week's episode it was kind of about this topic actually, but I was talking about how you need to say things because you don't know what your partner thinks you're thinking. They can't live in your mind, and 80% of human thought is usually negative self-talk. And so they might think that you think that they're not great. They might think that they're not lovable. Then like that kind of dialogue you can cut short. What the heck just happened to you, visual? You were sideways.
I I don't know. I'm frozen.
I'm dead. I'm dead. We can cut this out. Don't worry. Welcome back.
Bit of a hiccup.
Let's pretend to have ads. I don't have ads. It would be a perfect time to put in an ad break there, but I don't do ads. So
we should make fake ads. There's
what should we be advertising?
Oh my gosh. So have I told you about the podcast Dear Hank and John?
No.
So it's about the Green, John Green, Hank Green.
Okay.
And they just talk to each other. They answer questions from listeners. And before they started getting like real sponsorship through it, they just would make their own fake ads and just go off of like jokes that they had made previously. Like it was hilarious.
I don't sell anything, but if I did a fake ad, I would probably have to do something like go see a therapist now. Call this person and they will tell you to go see a therapist.
BetterHelp.
BetterHelp today. New added package. They will send you a human-sized slingshot for your partner who doesn't want to go to therapy. You just strap them in. They shoot them right off to the therapist. Singles also welcome.
Encouraged.
Your dirty ex off to BetterHelp with a slingshot. Okay, what was I talking about before our impromptu ad break because of Dallas going sideways on my screen? Dialogue with that's what we were talking about. So we were talking about how your partner doesn't know what you're thinking about them. That's right. So my last episode, I was talking about like the things you need to say to your partner because they don't know what you're thinking. They can't read your mind. And even though you know that you're confident with your partner, they may not know you're confident with them. They might think that, you know, the amount of times that you nag them about the wet towel that they put on the bathroom floor, you just think that they're like dirty, annoying man, right? Or woman, depending on your relationship. And it's important for you to voice, like you said, to voice those things like, hey, you did that thing. That was huge for me. That means a lot that you did that. I am so lucky to have you. Those kind of things really do just like bring about better change in your relationship. And they're more encouraged to do it rather than constantly being like, man, I suck about everything. Hi, Grim.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point because we're our own worst enemies. And we just assume that all of the negative self-talk that we put in our heads, that other people think that same way about us too. And so getting that reassurance from your partner that like, no, I don't think that. Like, I think that you're amazing. I just am pointing out that I would like extra help in this area, or I need you to just think about cleaning up after yourself for this. And like that way things don't just like keep building up and building until they boil and explode and then it's an inevitable fight.
Yeah, and like this is important for people who don't have their main love language as words of affirmation too. Like my neighbor's going off. Just a second. He's good. So it's important for people who have like physical touch and like gifts to hear it too, just because we're humans, we don't live in each other's brains, and we need to know those things. But at what point is it, do you think, not helpful to own mental health to only be focusing on our partner's love language, constant being like, hey, this I'm doing this for you because I know that your love language is physical touch, but I like gifts and I just don't feel like I'm getting loved. What kind of conversations do you think
Well,
needs to be had
that
at
is an
that
important
point?
conversation because you cannot fill from an empty bucket. And so, if you feel like you're just giving, 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 and not getting anything in return, say something. Absolutely. But be kind about it. I think that what happens is that people get overwhelmed and they're like, I just need to say how I feel. So I'm just going to like throw it out there because they need to hear this. They need to listen. Something that my husband and I have started doing is saying, like, hey, there's something I really need to talk about with you. Is now a good time? Like, are you mentally prepared for me to like talk about something difficult? Get them in a good headspace to be able to take on some information, take on some constructive criticism. Because if you just throw it at them, they're going to feel attacked. But if you say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, calmly, like, I'm really overwhelmed and I really need to talk to you about this. Is now a good time? Do we need to wait? And like, do you need to like mentally prepare yourself? It puts them on the same level as you and they're able to be prepared to potentially receive some difficult information. Um, and so that's going to happen where your partner is going to just get into this rhythm of life and they start worrying about their own issues at work or whatever, their friends, their family, and they just kind of expect that you're going to just handle yourself, that like their mind is elsewhere and can't be on you. And you're going to feel that and it's going to be difficult. So, what you need to do is sit down and say, hey, I'm not feeling seen. I feel like I'm not getting the attention from you that I need right now. And so we need to work something out. Like, can I help you to get past this faster so that you can give me some time? Or can you put that on the side burner for a bit so that you
Mm-hmm.
can spend an evening just with me? Um, if you don't speak up about your own love language needs, the ways that you need to feel loved and accepted and seen, then it might just go uncared for. And nobody
Mm-hmm.
wants that. Your partner wants you to feel loved just like you want them to feel loved. And
I love that you say that, actually, that because very often I feel like a lot of us, especially those that come from a background of an insecure attachment to our parents, often view our partner as someone who's there because there wasn't someone better, or they're there by default and they're not actually like choosing every day to stay with us. So I think that's important that you said that.
yeah, exactly. And also remember that your relationship with your parents or your parents' relationship to each other is not you. It's not your
Mm-hmm.
relationship. It's two very different people in a very different situation than you and your partner in your situation.
Mm-hmm.
And people get so scared that like they're going to just repeat the mistakes of their parents. But keep in mind that you're a different person, your partner's a different person, you're in one very unique relationship with your partner that would be so different if you were in a relationship with a different person because that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole different person, bring out different parts of you. And so what you need to focus on is not like, oh, this is inevitably going to happen, my parents got divorced, their parents got divorced, so I'm going to get divorced, it's just a matter of time. If you have that mindset, then yeah, you're probably going to get divorced. But if you say, hey, no, I want to work specifically on this relationship because it is unique, it is special. I want to make this work. Then you have to have that mindset every day of, yeah, we hit a bump in the road or a huge mountain. This seems unclimbable. This seems like we can't get past it. Small steps every day. Like make the effort every day to show your partner that you love them, to remind your partner that you need love too. There was a comment that I was going to say. No, I can't remember it, but
Sorry.
No, it's good. But we've still got all good stuff here. It's just,
I think so. Okay, so
this topic. Yeah.
No, that's great. I have a twofer for you then. A 2-for-1 question. So at what point do you think that human beings as in general, like this is not gender specific at all, should be seeking out a community to fulfill their needs in their love language compared to when should it be a deal breaker?
As in like inappropriate, and so therefore it's a deal breaker?
Well, I think more along the lines of like, when do you like have that discussion with your partner and possibly just come to terms in your mind that maybe my love language cannot be fulfilled by my partner, whether or not they're on the spectrum, or perhaps like they do have some like holdups with certain like physical intimacies, or they don't know how to properly give gifts to you, whatever it is. What part of you, like in a relationship, can you give that to someone in your community, a friend group that can fulfill that need for you so that you can stay in your relationship that you worked on and that you love? And what point do you think that the only way to fix it is to leave?
Yeah, that's a good point. So Jordan, my husband, and I are in this friend group, and we actually all got together for a friend's birthday party last night. And
you guys, okay, I'm gonna let you think on this, and I'm gonna interrupt for a second. They are so sticky, disgustingly cute in this friend group because I'm long distance with Dallas. I just like, I watch them and I'm like, ew, but it looks like fun. But ew, you guys are so cute, but no.
And you would be in this group if you lived here. So.
I want to be like the friend pigeon, or like the friend like bat that just like hangs there and then is like, I gotta go.
Just watches.
Like, I'm not really involved, but
oh my gosh. So this kind of discussion actually about gift giving came up last night because one of our friends said that he is impossible to buy gifts for because he will not accept gifts that he doesn't already know he will love. So he has an Amazon wish list, and every birthday or Christmas, so he'll just go like fill it throughout the year, and then he tells his wife, okay, go from that list, and so that she knows exactly what he wants and that he's going to accept. And Jordan's like, oh,
I thought I was bad.
So Jordan actually really loved this idea because he's like,
no, he didn't. No.
Listen, hear me out.
Okay.
He loved it because he is also very hard to buy gifts for. But usually he will just buy himself whatever he wants instead of saying like, hey, by the way, I would love this sometime. So he will just get stuff for himself and then tell me afterwards. And so around like Christmas time or his birthday, like a month beforehand, he'll be like, oh, I just bought all this stuff for me because I wanted it. So it's an early Christmas gift to me. And I'm like, but then what do I get you? So he even said like, see, I like that because I don't have any way to tell Dallas like what I want. And so there have been many times where he's like, oh, thanks. But then he doesn't actually love and appreciate the gift. So
hard to shop for.
I know. And so this is kind of
default is for buying gifts for men is tools. I always think like they could use a screwdriver, right? What's wrong with me? But yes.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it works for them, like, they found a good groove with it because then it loses any sort of, like, disappointment in the
I
gift gi
I'm starting to lean into it. It might be a good idea, and I feel like where you're going with this is a little bit like if you have a partner whose love language is gifts, provide them the opportunity to find the right for you. I get that. Okay.
Yeah, but then also, because we give gifts within the group as well, and so I feel like that has given me an outlet because I do love giving people gifts, but apparently sometimes I'm not great at it, and so and so, like, Jordan doesn't always appreciate getting gifts. He doesn't like those kinds of surprises of like not knowing what he's going to get. But this friend group does. And so that's a way that I can get that outlet and then also receive other gifts as well. Because the same mindset for him is that, oh, I am not easy to shop for, therefore I'm not easy to like shop for other people either. Like I have a hard time knowing what other people would want as well. And so in that sense, I think that kind of love language is totally acceptable, you know, give people
For
the people you
different.
love gifts.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, but when it comes to potentially a deal breaker is when you your love language say is um physical touch or quality time. And although I'm like words of affirmation, you can totally tell your friends that you love them and you think they're amazing and stuff. Like, definitely do that because that'll also strengthen your friendship. But
With
when it
boundaries. With
comes to
boundaries.
more, yeah, with boundaries. Don't go telling somebody of the opposite sex that you love them. That may get a little complicated, but
Boundaries, like, talk about them. Just saying.
yeah. But yeah, so definitely talk to your partner about boundaries. But yeah, like when it comes to something that could be more intimate, that is when you really need to talk to your partner of, hey, I'm not getting this from you. You're not mentally able to like provide this to me. How do you feel about opening this part of our relationship up to other
Mm.
people? Because I mean, physical intimacy is just one aspect of a relationship. I
Mm-hmm.
In my personal opinion, I don't think, and I do recognize that people feel so different from this. Like, this is a very hot topic, but I'm wanting to provide this opinion so that other people can think on it, can like see it as a potential option that like I don't think that physical intimacy has to be the make or break of a relationship. It is
Mm-hmm.
not the most important thing. In my opinion, the friendship of your relationship is the most important thing. Like if you don't like the person you're with and therefore don't like spending time with them, but you feel obligated because you love them, they're your spouse, they're your whatever, like that makes things really complicated. I think the foundation of a really healthy relationship is a very strong friendship. And sometimes people get mismatched and this can lead into our next topic about sex drives was like people get mismatched when it comes to physical intimacy where they maybe somebody is asexual and the other person is like pansexual and they just want some sort of like feeling that they can't get from their partner because their partner's not comfortable with it. But
Mm-hmm.
in every other aspect of their relationship, everything is perfect. They're a perfect match except for that one thing. I mean, is that going to be a deal breaker? I think on a personal level, you have to decide that, especially if your partner is not willing to share that part of you with somebody else.
See my light flashing?
A little bit.
Power better not go out. Okay.
Could you imagine?
No, I agree with you. So like My personal opinion on this is love languages are how you show love and how you feel love. And it's up to you to maintain that. And it's up to you to reach out to your partner about theirs and to accept what theirs is. And so, as far as mismatch in there, I don't think that's ever a thing because everyone is always different. But I
Mhm.
do think that when it comes towards things of if your partner really, really isn't able to meet your needs, which is the foundational part of your relationship, is your needs, that's why you're there, then I also agree that you should find a way to open up your relationship within your boundaries. And I know this is like coming up on that boundary of an open relationship. I don't necessarily believe that open relationships means like you have to open the door wide open and everything is now open and nothing is
Yeah.
sacred in your relationship anymore. Sometimes an open relationship can be that you involve a friend in your relationship to get like it's your emotional needs. Maybe you need someone that can understand you when you have a hard day and your partner is not able to like disconnect the fix it gadget in their brain. You're not looking to fix it. You're looking at someone to understand you and have empathy in that situation. Sometimes a friend needs to feel that. Or if you have a need of like quality time and your partner's long distance, because I'm in a long distance relationship right now, I can't get physical touch from my partner. I have to find a different way of approaching this within the boundaries in our relationship. So I don't know if mismatch can ever really happen. I think it's all about what we're able to accept in our partner and whether or not we're willing to do that. So maybe
Yes.
it's
It's
more
a give and
about
take.
the relationship itself. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think the only area in which it could be mismatched if it is if one or both people in the relationship are not willing to provide the kind of
Yes.
love language that
Mhm.
their partner needs and requires.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that's exactly where we're heading. Okay. I think we've established good boundaries and good communication style for mismatch love languages, but and how like important that might be. However, mismatched sex drive, I feel like that is a whole other kettle of fish. That is important. And it can happen, is the thing. I do think this is an actual real issue. So, just going into it, I know we both have experiences within social groups of this being an issue. I don't think either one of us have had a personal experience where we're like, wow, this guy's just not providing it. Have you? Right?
I don't think that I've ever been with a man that like wasn't fulfilling that need for me to the level that I just needed it, you know.
Yeah, me either, honestly. And I think the only time that nope, never, nope, it's never happened to me. So,
We are just the lucky ones, I guess.
of course, like I tend to date younger, so
Mhm.
they got the stamina. Why do I say the things that I say? Oh my god. Um,
She's a
ah,
cougar.
yeah, but like it works. It is like it benefits me. I don't feel bad being this way. Okay, so just going into it, the general topic I feel like is a spectrum because like it's not always because someone can't match us. Sometimes there can be things that are holding them back. I know that for me in upbringing in the LDS church, I had a lot of because like there's this culture where not just in like the church I grew up in, I feel like it's in general a lot of churches that have purity culture ingrained in them. There is a shame element associated with it. Just in general, it's never painted in a positive light. I've never had a discussion within my church group that saw it as a good thing. It was shameful. And there's this dialogue that if you have sex before you get married, then you either are now looked at in your community as someone who can't respect boundaries and someone that doesn't love God and someone that values their lustful desires over their relationship with God and are giving away something instead of saving it for their husband or their wife, or they pity you.
Yeah. Have you ever heard I don't know if you heard it in your young women's groups when you were growing up, but it was popular when I was going through of the story of or the metaphor of being a chewed up piece of gum.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So to anybody who doesn't know, I don't think that it's talked about much anymore, but a
I hope
while,
not.
not that long ago, young women were taught that if you, so you're basically a piece of gum in your wrapper. And if you have a sexual relationship with somebody before marriage, then that person is chewing on you as a piece of gum. And then you go to the next person, that person's chewing on you as a piece of gum. And by the time you find your spouse, you're just this old chewed up piece of gum that nobody wants. Nobody wants used chewed up gum. And so when I joined the church, I was not a virgin. And could you imagine teenage, like newly in the church convert coming in being like, you're a chewed up piece of gum? Oh my
No one's gonna
God.
like you.
Nobody's going to love you. Nobody's going to want you. You're used. And
You want to have
there's,
sex with someone, but you already have? What?
yeah. And Jordan said that on his mission, there was regular talk amongst the missionaries, like using women as other metaphors for objects or
Why
food.
do they do?
Of like, you don't want your birthday cake already having taken a bite out of it, or you don't want somebody to already like open your present before you. And I'm like, oh my God.
Literal
Thankfully,
objectification. Yeah.
yeah, pure objectification. And so when you
And it's
mix that with like,
promoting.
yes. And so when you mix that with telling girls that like you are special because you are pure, then it gets in their minds of like, this is a dirty thing. And
Mm-hmm.
like what happens when I do get married and have to go through this, or even worse, they don't even know what you're talking about because they didn't get proper sex education. Here in Utah, the sex education in school is just abstinence. That's it. And so
Just
it's
don't do
so
it.
frustrating.
But
Yeah,
why?
just don't
Just
do it.
don't.
And there's like stories that go around BYU of newlyweds. They grew up in the church in their bubble, not knowing what sex was. And they get married, and on their wedding night, they're just sitting there in bed next to each other, like, what do we do now? And so, of course, like so many couples that I talk to that are also ex Mormon, like me and my husband, they never got the chance to like try things out and know what they liked
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
what gender they liked. And so at this point, they're married with kids and have a mortgage and like have settled down. And they're like, but this isn't what I want. Like now that I've had my like deconstruction from the church, now that I've uh, thought about all these different parts of me and really found out who I am, this isn't me. This isn't what I want. And the partner that I chose doesn't fit me in that
Mm-hmm.
way. And that way is very important to me now. And they don't have that kind of sexual intimacy, like physical touch element of their relationship open and accepted to seek out elsewhere. Sorry, I'm starting to stutter, but it's so
I've done it before.
but I mean, because it just this is a subject that really frustrates me because people feel so trapped because of social
Yeah.
construct of all right, well, you're an adult, you got married, you had kids, you're here, you don't want to break up your family, do you? So now you've got to stick to the rules of society. And it's especially because they've had it drilled into them from like newborn age that once you're a family for eternity and you can't do anything to break that up. And
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise you're going to ruin your kids, you're going to ruin your life, blah blah blah. And So my husband and I have kind of deconstructed that in a way of like, well, yeah, I got my sexual experiences before joining the church, before getting married, but he grew up in the church. He did not get that opportunity and he wants other experiences. And I totally understand that. I mean, it's fun
Mhm.
to like try out different people, I guess you can say.
It is.
Have different
It's great story
experiences.
time too.
Sorry if it's loud. The my garage is very loud and it's opening right now. But yeah, and so it's so sad seeing people just accept that, well, their sex life, their sex drive will not be met with a partner anymore because it's not their lifelong partner now does not meet those needs. And that
Yeah.
could be mentally and emotionally really draining, knowing that something that you personally need. So, especially like for people who are asexual, now they need to either like give their partner more than they're willing to do physically, or they're just like they feel like they're just going to be alone because they feel like that people aren't going to accept them for not wanting to get physical. And it's heartbreaking. Or somebody who is bisexual, pansexual, wanting relationships outside of just a heterosexual relationship, not being able to experience that kind of feeling, that kind of release, those needs met just because of a decision they made when they were in their early 20s.
It is so heartbreaking. And like I said, that's just like one layer of the onion. There's so many other layers there that could be going on with your partner, whether it's like previous sexual abuse, or if they are
Mm-hmm.
asexual, or they might not feel like they're capable of doing what you need because you do have a higher sex drive and they just don't naturally have that. There's so many different things that could be going on. So if your partner and you feel like there's a mismatch in the drive or the amount that you want to be having sex, it might not be what you think it is, first of all, and you really need to determine how important sex is in your relationship. Because like for me, long distance, I'm not getting it at all. So if like it's something important to me, I have to determine whether or not I want to continue to have a long distance relationship, if we need to open the relationship, or if I just hold out and I'm doing like abstinence until I can see him. So it
Mm-hmm.
really is like you need to know yourself, you need to know your drive, and you need to know at what stage in your life you are in order to accommodate this person in your life. Now, us allosexual people, people who enjoy having sex, have it pretty easy because we can we understand that it will happen. But someone who might be in a relationship with someone who is asexual, that's a whole other different, that's a whole other different onion. It's not even in the onion. It's like different onion.
Mm-hmm.
I am still kind of new to the whole topic of asexuality. I've only done like, I would say like first layer research on it, though I have experience with someone who was asexual in college. He was my roommate, and we didn't know what asexuality was. We didn't know what aromantic was. We didn't know what like anything outside of what the norm of what the church promoted to us at BYU, of what, like you don't have any sexual desires till you're married, and then all the sexual desires because you want all the babies. Like that's kind of what we understood as young 20-year-olds. And this roommate was one of the most romantic people I had ever met. She loved like Pride and Prejudice. She was really into Bollywood romances. She loved Korean dramas and like, oh, it was just so romantic. And she presented herself very much like someone who would be allosexual.
Mm-hmm.
But we started to pick up on things. The type of show she liked to watch where it involved romance didn't have kissing scenes, and it didn't have sex scenes of any kind. And anytime a scene like that would pop up, she would get physically grossed out. It was almost like she would like shiver with like how grossed out she was by it. And then
Mm-hmm.
she'd be like, no, I don't like that. And for us, we were like, yes, you do. What do you mean you don't? Oh, come on. When it's you. you'll like it. It sounds gross, I know, but you'll like it when it's you. We didn't have like any concept that no, she doesn't have those feelings of that being appealing to her. She is grossed out by it. And so when we came across an article about asexuality, we turned to her, we're like, oh my God, do you think this is you? And she started to cry
Yeah.
because in her mind, if she didn't have any sexual desires, no man would want her. And she just turned to us, she says, I want a family, I do want a husband, I promise you I do, I don't know what I am. And she just we never really talked about it again, and I don't know if she's ever fully discovered it. But that was my first introduction to it, and I felt bad because like for us, like we should know better, we should know that this is even something that someone could feel.
Yes,
So
but
that's my, yeah.
yeah, but asexuals, like, they love for the most
They do.
part. Of all the like audiobooks, podcasts, other people that I've talked to, not one of them that I've met is aromantic as well. Like, it's usually people that love. They love like intimacy, but not sexual intimacy.
Yes.
And, but then they see sexual intimacy as the way to get to emotional intimacy. And so they still just put up with it to a certain point, but sometimes it can make them feel so disgusting, and like it could be traumatizing to a certain point. And so that's like a chronic issue that you need to address with your partner and know if that's going to be a deal breaker for you.
Yes.
But then there are different times in life where there may be lulls where one or both people just don't have the sex drive, and that can be an acute issue. So, for example, when in all of my pregnancies, I was really sick, like bedridden, always in the hospital type of sick. And so I didn't have the physical capability to go through the act of sex. I didn't have the energy.
Yeah.
It would make me feel sick. And then it would make him feel dirty because I'm like dying on the bed, and but he still wanted to be like seen and fulfilled in that way. And so over time we got comfortable with like, okay, when I'm in those states where I just can't provide that for you, then he seeks it out in other ways, whether it's pornography that we have like talked about and I'm comfortable with, where it's from like an organization or whatever that doesn't do like harmful stuff, or it's like above board type of thing. Or he'll go through ones that are like um, run by women. That way it's like more kind towards women than objectification and stuff like that. And so we talk about those things so that he knows that he is safe to go fill those needs elsewhere while I'm in a state where I can't provide that. And so that is important to talk about with your partner for like acute issues. But if it's a chronic thing, you really need to know if it is going to be a deal breaker, if like long term for the rest of your life, potentially, if you're not going to be okay with that.
Oh yeah, and that's one thing that, like, going back to purity culture, I wish that they would stop. Just stop purity culture in general.
Yeah,
But,
please. You,
no
you
one
are
needs
not
it.
reduced
No
to
one
whether
needs
you
that
are a
kind of
virgin or not.
negativity. Regardless of like if you believe in it or not, whatever. I feel like you need to be having. First of all, you need to know what your sex drive is. You need to have knowledge about yourself, and then second of all, you need to know whether or not your partner's comfortable, not only just with sex, but the type of sex you want. Like, where are your boundaries? Where does it cross? And is that so important to your partner to have that a part of his sex life? That is that going to be a deal breaker? Because not like some people have some really kinky ideas. Like,
and those conversations are so awkward, but they are really important, because there are times where I've like left the room feeling like I did not consent to that. That made me uncomfortable in the
Wow.
moment, but like they enjoyed it. So I'm whatever, I'm okay. But then talking about it later and being like, okay, I don't like doing that. So can we not do that in the future? And if I am comfortable with it in the future, I will let you know.
But I think that's very an important part. I wonder what it would take for me. That's crazy. But I'm just revealing stuff about myself over here. But I can only imagine for someone who is asexual dealing with being in a partnership with someone who's allosexual, and the type of like what could you even say to your partner at that point when it always feels that way? But like there's this dynamic that like goes through my head when I think about these situations where an allosexual person is in a committed relationship with an asexual person, especially an asexual person who is repulsed by sex. Is at what point does it become a dynamic where the asexual person has to subject themselves to acts that literally is abhorrent to them in order to maintain their relationship, or the allosexual person has to be in forced what was it, forced celibacy in
Mhm.
order to maintain the relationship? Neither person is okay with it, and neither person is going to be comfortable like with the alternative. So like I don't know if there is another option other than to open the relationship at that point with this kind of dynamic. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that could be a healthy way to go as long as both people are at that level. They're like able to trust each other that at the end of the day, they're the main relationship. They're the ones that are going to be the ones that are loved. And the allosexual partner is just seeking out this physical aspect of their needs and desires being met by somebody else, but not their emotional needs, not their like not their heart. They're not giving that
Mhm.
part of themselves to somebody else just because I mean, it's often hard for people to see that sex and love can be mutually exclusive. And sometimes they don't like people don't see it that way. They see love equals like or leads to sex or and then sex
Mhm.
causes love. Um I think that another thing that could be helpful that I've heard some people do in those kinds of relationships is schedule sexual intimacy, because if that doesn't happen, if they don't like they're not mentally preparing themselves for one specific time, then they're always on edge. They're like, oh,
Mhm.
does this like cuddle or kiss session mean that it's going to lead somewhere that I'm not mentally prepared for right now?
Oh
And
yeah.
they could always just be on edge with that. And it could be stressful and it could really like eat at you and ruin your relationship long term.
Because if they always have that guard up of like at any point this kiss could like lead to that, or at any point I can just look at my partner the wrong way and it's going to be sex on the kitchen floor. Like
Hmm.
I think the discussion needs to be had and then proven about that boundary of like it has to be within that scheduled time in order for that person to feel comfortable. Like I don't know anyone personally that has this kind of dynamic, but I can only imagine that it's stressful if you don't want to open the relationship. And it's stressful. I mean, like,
It's going to be
I do know
stressful
of
for
some men.
both parties.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Like, it's stressful, like, for the person who constantly feels like I have to dress less attractive. I have to walk less attractive. I have to watch myself around my ovulation cycle because I'm going to smell more attractive. Like that whole like there's so many things that you can think about if you're trying to not be attractive to your partner, which is like sad because don't you want to be attractive to your partner? Like that's one of the most beautiful parts about being in a relationship is knowing that this person is attracted to you. And
Yeah.
then there's the other element of like do I always have to like watch porn in order to feel fulfilled? And a lot of guys and a lot of women, that's not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's just not, because the actual act of bonding with your partner during sex is what makes it fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Um, mm, I lost it again.
Shit, I'm sorry. Keep doing this.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It's fine.
Um,
Um, yeah, and so I think that again, just talking with your partner, it's so
and yeah,
important. And
it's got to be the bare
understand
minimum. Mhm.
what?
It has to be the bare minimum. Like that needs to be
Yeah.
the foundation. It's like, this is what I am, and this is how I view sex, and this is what's important to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the bottom line is if you guys are not on the same page, if there are certain things that are deal breakers, then your person needs to know that. Oh, what I was going to say is
Here we go.
like do not tell asexual people that have accepted and come out as asexual and know that part of them that they just haven't had the right person.
Oh God, I hate that.
Do not do that. That is so horrible. I mean, could you imagine being like, oh, I've dated so many awful guys, and somebody's just like, oh, well, but you haven't tried me. You haven't tried the right guy. Like,
Oh God,
no, that
no.
is horrible.
It's
Ugh.
almost like people who really hate certain type of foods, like they can't eat it. There's always that, oh, but you haven't tried, there's gonna be one pickle that you're gonna like.
Mm,
Or maybe you could just accept the fact that this person has tried or just knows, and that's just the way it is. Like, that's just accept other people's ways of living life.
yes.
I don't understand why that's so
Agree.
hard. Just because it doesn't reflect your needs and doesn't reflect your experiences, why are you trying to make yourself feel more validated in someone else's walk of life? I don't get it.
We are all such different people.
Agreed. So within the spectrum, I have done some research on asexual people approaching relationships and the fear of opening a relationship, because their understanding in general of the sexual act being related to being emotionally close to their partner, like the bonding element to it, which on my podcast we have talked about how, like, regardless of whether or not you are going to continue being sexual with that person, you do release bonding chemicals in your system when you have sex with that person, but that doesn't mean that we are slaves to our emotions. we can
Right.
we can control that. But with asexual people, the concept there is very difficult to understand because their element is the bonding. Like, that's what
Mhm.
they get out of sex. Because a lot of asexual people do have sex, and some of them, to a degree, see it as something that is like recreational. I guess like rock climbing or whatever. Like they
Or
see it as like
even
fun.
or
Mhm.
even as a means to an end.
Yes.
Like
Or even as a
though
means to an end. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So that they can get that kind of closeness. But I mean, for people like me and you that can
Hmm.
separate the emotions from the sex, like sometimes it's fun to just have a one night stand or something, like
Hmm.
it's totally fine and it can be healthy. It can release like stress, but for somebody that sees them as inherently connected, that kind of situation just doesn't seem
Hmm.
like possible.
Yeah. So, like, what I think of is sometimes I have a lot of like random people, and someone had no affection towards animals. Like, they couldn't understand why people had pets. And I was talking to her one day about like why like they're so cute. They're so fuzzy. They're so lovable. Even like the little hamsters, you don't even like the little cute little hamsters, like nothing. And she's like, it's like someone took me into a tire store and were trying to get me to pet tires. or hold this bike tire, or isn't this tire cute? Like, it's just like, that's kind of how I feel like some asexual people approach the act of sex. Is like, yeah, okay, I like tires, they're useful for my car, but like, I don't get off on tires. Like, tires. So I think kind of that some of that element is in there too. But then there's also the trauma aspect to it. It can be traumatizing, especially if someone has a mismatch in there. Like if someone's really kinky and someone's
Yeah.
like really into the dirty stuff, having a relationship with an asexual person, that's, oh man, I just can't
I
imagine.
mean, yeah, like I said earlier, I've been in situations like that where I left thinking like that wasn't what I wanted. Could you imagine that every single time of being like, all right, I feel dirty and taken advantage of, and I didn't consent to these certain things? I mean, constantly. And so, I mean, for any relationship, these sex talks are awkward and difficult, and you feel like
Ah,
you're going to offend your partner, but they are essential for you to feel safe and secure in your physical
mhm.
relationship.
I think it's important to kind of focus on the fact that like if you're an adult, if you can have sex, you should feel comfortable going out of your comfort zone enough to talk about it, because
Yeah.
we're not in high school anymore. I get that like when our emotional egos were very fragile and anything could harm us, it was more difficult to talk about these things. But if you're going to be in a relationship with someone that you're going to be having sex with, you got to be able to talk about it, and you got to work that awkwardness out of the conversation. Just own it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you talk, you can do it, then you can talk about it.
Yep.
So I don't know if I'm fully convinced that a person who is allosexual in a relationship with an asexual person necessarily need to end that relationship. But I do understand that it can be very scary for the asexual person to open the relationship, because
Yeah.
they do associate that with bonding with their partner.
Yeah. And so
So,
they would think like, oh, if my partner can find this elsewhere, then they're going to find every other aspect of the relationship with that person too.
like, nothing
And
is valuable anymore.
yeah. And so, yeah, it comes back to like foundation of your relationship should be friendship. You should be able to talk with your person about your boundaries, your needs, and feel safe and secure in that. And if you don't yet feel safe and secure to talk about these things, then you need to work on the friendship first before working
Hmm.
on any sort of like intimate level
Hmm.
connection.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I don't agree that any asexual person should try to adapt to the allosexual person's needs just because that's the norm.
Yeah, that's not fair to them at all.
No, but I do think that it's important that both partners get their needs met some way. And so
Hmm.
if you know for sure that your partner is asexual, like they've talked to you about it, I guess like what I'm trying to say here is, at what point do you walk away for the betterment of the relationship? What point do you, as a human being, feel like it's justifiable to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if your partner is not willing to um, accept your needs in any way, shape, or form, if they're not willing to schedule time to be intimate so that you can look forward to it and they can mentally prepare for it, if they're not willing to allow you to seek those needs out elsewhere, whether it be through masturbation or an open relationship, um,
Mm-hmm.
like if they're holding you prisoner in that sense of basically saying like, well, my needs and my feelings are more important than yours, then
Mm-hmm.
that I think that's really unhealthy at that level. It's just not healthy.
Honestly, I feel like this is the type of relationship that could benefit from couples therapy the most.
Hmm.
If anything else, I mean, communication styles can often cause contention in relationships in general, but imagine sex drives being the difference. Like, I think that that needs to be something that you do bring someone else into. Am I boring you, Dallas?
I got like 5 hours of sleep last night. I'm good.
Was partying too hard. Yawning on my podcast. How dare you?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm here. I'm present. I am listening. I'm focused.
Okay. What was I going to say? Something about getting help. Okay. Yes. I honestly want to bring up polyamory in this situation because one of the biggest benefits that anyone can get from polyamory is the fact that everyone's needs can get met some way and no one is abandoned.
Yeah.
So I know that
And
you have some knowledge on
this. Yeah. And there are different types of polyamorous relationships. There are ones where everyone is equal, everyone has the same level of love and care as everyone else. And then there are ones where it's kind of a hierarchy, where you have your primary partner and then your secondary partner, your tertiary partner, and so forth. And that is one where your primary partner, whatever they say goes, basically, where you guys have to be on the same page. Otherwise, the poly relationship is not going to be successful. And I feel like that's how me and my husband are, where, yeah, we're open to an open relationship, but the two of us, we come first, no matter what. Like it, and there always has to be open communication where he's not allowed to just go off and do whatever with whoever and not consider my opinions and feelings about the matter. Like he talks to me about who he's going to start talking to. If anything were to get physical, we need to talk about it beforehand, and vice versa. It's not just on him, it's on me too. And so we have these rules set in place so that we can protect our relationship and keep it what we want it to be, but still recognize that our marriage is a partnership between us because we love each other and we want to love our partner for who they are, not try to fit them into a box that society says, well, now you've gotten married, you got the ring, so now you have to follow by our rules. And so I think it's
in order
important.
to be legitimate, you have to do it this way.
Yeah, exactly. And any other feelings you have towards anybody, that's inappropriate, that's not acceptable, you're cheating on your partner. And so, but we do recognize that cheating can still happen in a poly relationship. Yeah. And so everything always has to be above board. I mean, everything has to be talked about in the open. That way there's no deception. There's no sneaking off and texting somebody that either of us don't know about or whatever. Like, everything is with respect. And not just in the context of a poly relationship, but in any relationship, I think it's important to have the relationship fit you and your partner versus you and your partner fitting into a relationship where, like I said, oh, we're married, so now we're stuck in this kind of situation where this is where we're at now. And instead we make the relationship just fit our needs.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's the beauty of polyamorous relationships to me, is the fact that, first of all, they communicate way more about everything and nothing is off the table. Like, everything gets talked about because you don't have to feel like, are they going to think I'm cheating? You talk about it. It is way more accepting and way more, I mean, hard feelings, like, damn, you guys talk about feelings way more because of all of the feelings involved, but it can lead to everyone feeling fulfilled. And that's why it can be beneficial, I feel like, in these kind of situations, for sure. Building a little non-conventional, I guess, structure can make sure that you're not being abused and you're not abusing your spouse. Bottom line. And unfortunately, that needs to be talked about. So I feel like if anything that we talked about feels uncomfortable to a partner, I would just honestly, like, tell them to talk, at least learn about it. because you
Mhm.
might be uncomfortable because of a deep rooted idea that you had. I mean, like a few years ago, do you think he would feel comfortable talking about polyamory?
No, no. And I do remember the first time we talked about this type of thing, I was a full blown mess. I was bawling. I was like, how dare I have feelings for someone else? And my husband just looks at me and he's like, that's normal. Like, you're a human, you have emotions. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that it's
Mm-hmm.
normal to have feelings towards somebody else. And that's when it like really got going and we started talking about it more and being like, what if we wanted to act on this? Like, how would you feel about that? And so, I mean, neither of us have yet, but it's something that we regularly talk about of like, hey, I find this person attractive. I just wanted you to know so that if it seems like I'm flirting with them, I probably am. And it's something that we just are always talking about so that we can get used to it more and more comfortable with the idea of it. So
Mm-hmm.
that if something were to start being initiated, then we're not completely caught off guard. We're not like, oh, that was just a conversation we had like 2 years ago. You really took that seriously, type of thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's always talked about.
And I think it's beautiful to have that dynamic where both people aren't threatened by it. And if you do feel threatened by it, talk to your partner. I don't feel like it needs to be like, now we're going to be like on the verge of ending our relationship because I talked about the fact that I'm uncomfortable that my partner is flirting with the person they said they're attracted to. Like, you should feel comfortable being able to be like, I had some feelings about that. Like,
Yeah.
that makes a good relationship in general. But I do think you need to
Mhm.
educate. If anything that happens comes up in your relationship that you're uncomfortable with, do some research, become educated on it. And you might find that the reason why you're feeling like you're uncomfortable is because of something that happened in your past, either like you came across via someone else's relationship, or you have been taught from a young age something that you need to feel shameful about that thing.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's my
exactly.
feelings on that anyway.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts or feelings? Safe
Um,
space.
so on the same topic of like wanting, like having the freedom to talk to your partner about what's on your mind, how I describe it to Jordan is that I feel like there are moments where I'm talking to husband Jordan, and then there are times
Mm.
where I'm talking to best friend Jordan, where
Oh.
it's about something outside of our marriage. And I'm like, I need to talk to you as my best friend because that's the kind of input and advice I need versus when I talk to him about like husband stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to maintain, because like you should have some sort of element of friendship with your partner. You should not have to always feel like everything is so goddamn serious. Like,
Yeah.
some things can be like so much more on a fluffy, superficial level. You don't always have to be like, let's get to the root of this issue. I like that,
Yeah.
keeping a friendship clear and defined within your romantic relationship. That's cute.
And I mean, he said that he doesn't see it that way. Like, I'm just me, and so he talks to me
The
as
Jordan
me.
answer.
He is such a Jordan answer. He does not compartmentalize things. Everything is that. But
It's just, this is the way
whatever.
it is.
I mean, it's a great representation of how people are just so different in relationships. Like, he and I are so different in so many ways, but we
Yes,
work
yeah.
because we're willing to work through it. And we recognize that, like, I love him for who he is, he loves me for who I am. And so anything that's going to get uncomfortable, like, we will work through it because we want this relationship to stay.
Yeah, I've never told you this, but I'm going to tell you this now. Oftentimes, when I think about your dynamic with your husband, your thought process, I like imagine what's going on in your head is like Bob Ross painting and like painting this beautiful picture, whereas Jordan's head is just like Morse code. He's like, got it. But you're like, look at this beautiful picture, and there's some happy trees, and there's a waterfall over here, and he's like,
He's like
It's outside
zero
of the
one one
scope.
zero 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 one one zero.
Yep. But somehow, even with this mismatched communication like level on your brains, you've been able to like make it work and flourish all these years. So I think if anything, you guys are a great example of how this it can work with the right mindset and the right commitment behind it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
it's yeah, really just if you want to make it work, you got to figure out how to make it work.
Agreed. Like that's like the main point of like this whole episode. I know we've been on for like over an hour, but you want to make it work and you both are making it work, you can make it work.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the whole point of the episode.
Summed up
you
into
got it.
one sentence.
It really is. Yeah. Like we're killing it over here. Here, I want to thank you for coming on and giving me 2 days of your time in order to record this episode. And thank you for being my first virtual guest.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And it was a lot of fun talking about this with you.
I enjoyed it. You were the right person to come to for sure. All right, I'm going to sign you out and then I'm going to sign these guys out.
Okay, bye, Mindy.
Bye.